What's good? This is Zaza Beast. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down every sequence in Lord of Mysteries, starting from sequence 9, where novice beyonders start their journey, all the way up to sequence 0, the godhood tier that only the most powerful beings in existence can reach. These aren't just power levels. Each sequence fundamentally changes who you are as a person, with unique abilities, corrupting influences, and the constant risk of losing your humanity. This is a ranking system where climbing higher means transcending into pure divinity, but also means losing everything that makes you human. Stay till the end to find out why Sequence 0 is the ultimate goal and the ultimate curse. Let's start at the bottom of the ladder. Sequence 9. This is the entry point, the moment an ordinary human drinks their first potion and becomes something more than mortal. Beyonders are still relatively weak compared to higher sequences, but they're already miles above normal humans. The problem with Sequence 9 is that it comes with minimal mental side effects, which makes most people think it's safe. It's not. The potion itself is just the first hit of a drug that will eventually consume your entire being. At Sequence 9, you're getting basic supernatural powers, enhanced senses, minor spellcasting, improved reflexes depending on your pathway. But you're also starting to feel the corruption creeping in, the whispers of your pathway trying to influence your thoughts. Klein Moretti himself started as a Sequence 9 Fool Beyonder, completely unprepared for what that choice would mean. The beauty and tragedy of Sequence 9 is that it feels manageable. You have power but not enough to truly understand the cost. You're taking the first step down a path that gets steeper and darker with every sequence you climb. Moving up to Sequence 8, where Beyonders start to develop real competence and power. This is where the pathway specialization becomes obvious. Different pathways manifest entirely different abilities at this level. A Sequence 8. Apothecary has pharmaceutical powers that can heal or harm, while a Sequence 8 clown has enhanced agility and humor-based abilities that distort perception. At Sequence 8, you're no longer a novice. You're becoming dangerous. The mental corruption intensifies, and the potion side effects are becoming undeniable. Your personality might shift slightly. You find yourself thinking like your pathway, acting according to its nature. If you're on the clown pathway, you become more eccentric and playful. If you're on the demoness pathway, you become more alluring and manipulative. Sequence 8 is often considered the last safe sequence before things get genuinely dark. You still have enough humanity to question the changes. By Sequence 7, that questioning becomes harder. The gap between Sequence 9 and Sequence 8 might seem small, but in terms of actual combat power, it's enormous. A Sequence 8 Beyonder can take on multiple Sequence 9s without breaking a sweat. Sequence 7 is where things get legitimately dangerous. This is the start of mid-sequence, and the power jump is absolutely massive. A Sequence 7 Beyonder can genuinely threaten small cities. The corruption is no longer something you can ignore. It's actively reshaping your personality and worldview. At Sequence 7, Beyonders start unlocking more reality-bending abilities. Klein at Sequence 7. Fool could perform increasingly powerful rituals and manipulations of luck and spirituality. Other pathways become forces of nature. A Sequence 7. Warrior can move at speeds that make them appear to teleport. A Sequence 7. Witch can curse or bless people with tangible effects that change their fate. The problem with Sequence 7 is that the side effects become serious. You might start experiencing hallucinations of your pathway's divine form. You might hear voices that aren't quite your own. Some Beyonders go completely insane at this level because they can't handle the mental pressure. The potion formula becomes less about enhancement and more about transformation. You're becoming something that wears your face rather than something you control. Sequence 7 is also where organizations start taking notice. Nations watch for Sequence 7 Beyonders emerging because they represent a genuine threat to stability. Sequence 6 is where Beyonders stop being individuals and start becoming forces of nature. This is high sequence territory, and the power difference between Sequence 7 and Sequence 6 is absolutely staggering. A single Sequence 6 Beyonder can destroy armies. Multiple Sequence 6 Beyonders fighting each other can level cities. At Sequence 6, the potion side effects are becoming catastrophic. Your memories might start fragmenting. You'll remember things that never happened to you. or forget crucial parts of your own life. You might start believing you've lived multiple lives simultaneously. The pathways aren't whispering anymore. They're screaming. The divine form of your pathway isn't just haunting your visions. It's starting to overlap with your consciousness. Sequence 6. Beyonders are rare because very few people survive the transition from Sequence 7 to Sequence 6. The mental degradation is severe enough that most lose their sanity entirely. Those who do maintain their rationality often do so through sheer force of will or by isolating themselves from society, because staying around normal humans becomes painful. Their very presence starts distorting reality around them. In terms of the series, Sequence 6 Beyonders are the beings that kingdoms fear, that churches hunt, that secret organizations either recruit or eliminate immediately. You're no longer a person with powers. You're a catastrophe waiting to happen. Sequence 5 represents a critical threshold in the Lord of Mysteries system. This is where you cross from being a powerful individual into being something that approaches divinity. The gulf between Sequence 6 and Sequence 5 is enormous. A Sequence 5 Beyonder is exponentially more powerful than a Sequence 6. At Sequence 5, your physical body becomes almost secondary to your spiritual existence. You can manifest in multiple places simultaneously. Reality bending becomes second nature. You're not just affecting things around you, you're rewriting the rules of how things work in localized areas. A Sequence 5 can create domains where their pathway's rules supersede natural law. The corruption at Sequence 5 is so severe that most Beyonders lose their original identity completely. You're not a person who is corrupted. You're the pathway wearing your corpse like a suit. Your memories of your human life become foreign concepts, like reading someone else's diary. Beyonders forget they were ever human at all. Sequence 5 is also where the hidden truths of the world start becoming clear. You gain access to knowledge that was previously sealed. Understanding about the origins of pathways, the nature of Sephiroth, the true identities of the outer deities. This knowledge itself is corrupting because it's too vast for any mind to process without degradation. Sequence 4 is where most Beyonders should be dead if they weren't already. These are the beings that religions are built around, gods in all but name. The power ceiling at Sequence 4 is almost incomprehensible. A Sequence 4 can reshape continents if they wanted to. They don't just bend reality. They rewrite the fundamental rules of existence in their vicinity. At Sequence 4, you're no longer affected by time in the normal way. You might experience your entire lifespan simultaneously, or become completely untethered from linear causality. Some Sequence 4 Beyonders achieve a state where they exist in multiple timelines at once. Your body is just a vessel. Your true form is pure spiritual energy that only takes physical shape when necessary. The sanity meter completely breaks at Sequence 4. There's no such thing as sanity at this level. You're operating on an entirely different plane of existence and consciousness. You might be completely insane by human standards, but that insanity is actually perfect logic from a higher dimensional perspective. You're seeing reality as it truly is, and that truth is utterly alien. Sequence 4. Beyonders are the beings that keep the world running. They're the hidden powers that civilizations answer to. Secret organizations don't control Sequence 4s. They negotiate with them. A single Sequence 4 can destroy an entire nation in seconds if they choose to, which is exactly why they're kept secret from the general population. Sequence 3 is where we enter the realm of true divinity. These beings are so far beyond mortal understanding that calling them Beyonders feels like an insult. They're proto-gods, divine beings that can only be perceived by other high-sequence Beyonders. A single Sequence 3 is powerful enough that their existence alone affects reality. At Sequence 3, the concept of you has long since dissolved. You are the pathway. You are the divine authority it represents. Some Sequence 3. Beyonders don't even maintain individual consciousness anymore. They exist as distributed entities across multiple planes of existence. Others achieve something close to omniscience within their domain of influence. The only real limitation of Sequence 3 is that there can only be one true Sequence 0 per pathway, the uniqueness. Sequence 3, Beyonders are fighting each other constantly, usually not physically, but through reality-warping conflict that normal beings can't even perceive. They're playing multidimensional chess, where the board itself is constantly shifting. What makes Sequence 3 terrifying is that they can manifest their will retroactively, changing things that already happened. A Sequence 3 might decide that yesterday you were their ally, and reality bends to make it true. Your memories adjust, evidence appears, history itself is rewritten. Nothing stops a Sequence 3 except other Sequence 3s or a Sequence 0. Sequence 2 represents what most people think of as God level. These are the true lesser divine authorities, beings with genuine godhood status who rule over aspects of reality. In terms of raw power, a Sequence 2 can create universes, control fundamental forces like gravity or entropy, or reshape the laws of physics in localized areas. At Sequence 2, individuality might not exist anymore. Some Sequence 2s have merged with their pathways so completely that they're no longer distinguishable from the supernatural authority they represent. They are the divine concept. They're not a being with powers. They're literally the manifestation of their pathway's true form. What's interesting about Sequence 2 is that not all of them are aligned with goodness. A Sequence 2 demoness could be absolutely evil, while a Sequence 2 priest could be genuinely benevolent. But at this level, morality becomes meaningless. They're operating on such a different plane that human concepts of good and evil don't apply. A Sequence 2 might destroy a country without malice. It's just inevitable consequence of their existence. Sequence 2 are the beings that exist in legend and mythology. Civilizations build religions around them without knowing they're praying to actual, real entities. They're the untouchable forces of fate and destiny that shape the world from the shadows. Sequence 1 is the absolute peak below true godhood. These beings are so powerful that existence itself bends around them. A Sequence 1 is in complete control of their pathway's domain. At Sequence 1, multiple concepts apply simultaneously. You can exist in multiple timelines and dimensions at once, completely unaffected by normal causality. A Sequence 1 thief could steal abstract concepts like probability or agency from reality itself. A Sequence 1 nurse could heal death itself or resurrect the dead at will. The only thing stopping a Sequence 1 from being a true god is the existence of the Sequence 0 and the Sephirot. The Sequence 0 of their pathway is the true god, the uniqueness that contains all the authority of that divine concept. A Sequence 1 is the closest you can get without achieving that singular position. What makes Sequence 1 genuinely terrifying is that there's no limitation we can even comprehend. A Sequence 1 can rewrite its own existence retroactively. They could decide they never existed before today, and reality would conform to that narrative. They're no longer bound by any rule except the existence of the Sequence 0 itself. Most people don't even know Sequence 1 exists. It's above the knowledge level of 99.9% of the world. These are the beings that shape reality at the most fundamental level, and very few even know they're real. And finally, we reach the top. Sequence 0, true godhood. This is the uniqueness tier, the absolute end of the pathway. There can only ever be one Sequence 0 per pathway because the uniqueness is singular. Achieving Sequence 0 means becoming the literal God form of your pathway, the divine authority incarnate. A Sequence 0 has no limitations. They can rewrite existence itself. They can undo their own erasure from reality. They can resurrect themselves if they die. A Sequence 0 doesn't just have power. They are power. They're not a being with godhood. They've transcended into pure conceptual divinity. What's insane is that multiple Sequence 0s have fought and coexisted throughout history. The world we see in Lord of Mysteries is shaped by ancient Sequence 0s, who achieved godhood and then either died, went dormant, or got sealed away. Their echoes still shape the world today. The endgame of the entire series revolves around Sequence 0. Which person will achieve it first, and whether humanity can even survive having true gods walking among them. Sequence 0 is the ultimate power ceiling, the moment where you stop being a beyonder and become a true god.